Yes, I think there is. I think we should be giving much more concrete assistance to the forces that are fighting the Assad regime. Assad basically has declared war on people who were peacefully protesting. Now the question really is who's going to win that war? And if we give them merely words and defeated UN resolutions, we're not doing much for them. We can do better than that.
I mean, the EU for sure has an arms embargo on supplying either side. There are other international injunctions against supplying arms. Do we have to lift those?
Yes, I mean, this business about an arms embargo on both sides, as we remember from the Balkans, is not smart because the Russians and Iranians are giving plenty of arms and equipment to the Assad regime. The people fighting them, the people in the so-called Free Syrian Army, you know, have rifles and pistols, and that's one of the reasons they're being killed in such great numbers by the regime's forces. If we're serious about helping them, then frankly we ought to be doing what we did in the early days in Libya. There was a joke then that there were no American boots on the ground. Well, yes, there were American boots on the ground, but there were no Americans in them. We should be equipping those forces with much more than they have now, or else they're just going to get crushed. We see this day after day, more and more casualties.
I mean, in the short term, as you say, we've got forces massing outside Homs, a bombardment underway. The supply of weapons to the rebels is not going to do anything to stop that. I mean, it would need stronger, more direct sanctions, wouldn't it, by NATO members?
Well, stopping the supply of arms to the Assad regime is going to be impossible as long as Iran wants to supply those arms. But we can certainly provide money and guns to the Free Syrian Army and to those opposing the regime. We can get it in from Lebanon, we can get it in perhaps from Jordan or Turkey. Those are somewhat porous borders. Certainly the Lebanese border has been porous for a very long time. So I think that's the way to go. Otherwise, all we're doing is making pious speeches about how terrible all of this is, but we're not helping.
But you wouldn't advocate considering further involvement, such as with air power, as we saw in Libya, for example?
I would not today, but you know, what happens if instead of killing 100 people today, they start killing 1,000 people each day? There may come a point at which, perhaps led by the Turks, there needs to be a kind of safe haven inside Syria. But I wouldn't advocate it today, and I don't really think there are any people, hardly any, if any, advocating it today in Washington. But there is a beginning of a call for giving more assistance to the opposition. Senators Lieberman and McCain actually called for that yesterday.
There are, of course, those who say that actually it's not in our interest to stir up or support conflict in a country like Syria, that instability there will give opportunities to people who may be more of a problem than us than, for example, the Assads have ever been.
One does hear that argument. I have to say I don't find it at all persuasive. This was a peaceful protest when it began. The Assad regime are the ones who decided to make this violent, and they're shooting now, 6,000 of their own citizens. So the question really is, in this civil war which has begun, who's going to win? Is it the side supported by Russia and China and Iran and Hezbollah, or is it the people of Syria, the vast majority, who want to get rid of that regime?
To a proxy opportunity to move against Iran?
Well, I think they want to stay out of this, and that's a wise thing for them to do. It is a proxy opportunity to hurt Iran for us in the United States, and I would say for all of us involved in an effort to contain Iran's influence in the region and make the regime realize that it must stop these kinds of activities. The demise of the Assad regime will weaken Hezbollah and will weaken Iran in a very effective way. It's probably the single greatest thing we can do right now to weaken Iran. So why should we not wish to do that?
Elliot Abrams, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, D.C.